Oi, tudo bem? Tamara here with my week 7 update for Brazilian Portuguese. So, I know you may be wondering what happened to week 5 and week 6, right? So, I didn't get to record a full video. I had started to last week, but for a very good reason. I have been traveling. So, I've been on the road a bit and I had a few snags in my travel plan, to say the least. So, things didn't go as planned. So therefore, I was really sort of preoccupied with that, and I didn't get a chance to record. I will talk more about that in my blog. So if you go to negringa.com, I'll go into more details about my sort of adventures in traveling. But suffice it to say, I was able to go to Brazil. I went to Rio de Janeiro for Carnival, and so I was able to get some Portuguese practice in. I found out just kind of walking around that people think that I'm Brazilian. So I have a look apparently that I look Brazilian, which was news to me. I think it was mainly because the area I was in, Rio de Janeiro, is Carioca. That's what they call folks from that area. And just kind of walking through the streets, people would kind of start talking to me in Portuguese, like really fast, because they just thought I was a native speaker, right? They thought I was from Brazil, which is really cool. And I really wish I would have been more prepared to have conversations. But most of the time, I just reverted to my stock phrase that I learned, which was me desculpe, não entendo. It's just like, I'm sorry, I don't understand, which is really, really sad. But I think my expectations were kind of high. One funny story from my trip. So I mentioned how people thought I looked like a local. So out on the beach one day with a friend of mine who actually spoke Portuguese much better than I do. There was a girl that kind of ran up to me and she looked like she needed help. I wasn't sure what she was saying. She was talking really, really fast. And I just kind of looked at my friend and said, well, what is she saying? He goes, oh, she wants you to hold up your towel so that you can cover her while she pees. Okay, so this is Carnival, right? So people are everywhere. People are drinking, they're partying, they're on the beach. A lot of people were running to the beach to relieve themselves. So, of course, this was not in any of the phrase books I had studied before going to Brazil. So the "Can you cover me while I pee in public" phrase was not there, not even in my dirty Portuguese book. Okay, so that caught me off guard, but my friend was really happy because he was able to understand her. So that was a good moment for him. But for me, I just kind of go, this is one of those times where you could have said, I don't understand, I don't speak Portuguese. I had set for the month of February for my goal to have a 10-minute conversation with a native speaker of Portuguese in Brazil. And I did meet that goal when I was in Rio de Janeiro, because there's, of course, so many native speakers there and so many people in the city for Carnival. So it was a really fun experience, and I did meet my goal for February. So that's the good news. Now, the bad news. My initial plan was to go to a school, a language school in Brazil, and take classes, take Portuguese classes. That did not happen. That's part of my little travel hitch that I had. I'll talk about another time. But because of that, I really was off about a week from my Portuguese study. So when I got to Brazil, I really felt unprepared with my Portuguese. And I also had friends there that were bilingual. So a lot of the conversations I had were actually in English, which unfortunately, because I just couldn't keep up with conversation in Portuguese as well, and because I was hanging around folks that spoke English, to make me feel comfortable, they sort of ended up reverting to English a lot. When you're traveling or even when you're living in another country, it's so easy to fall into your comfort zone of just speaking English because it's easier. And because I sort of missed out on those classes that I was going to take for Portuguese, and I was going to do a homestay with a family to sort of acclimate me a little bit more and get used to speaking Portuguese. Because I didn't do those things, I felt so unprepared, and I just kind of naturally fell back into speaking English with the people that were there that spoke English. So that was one of the drawbacks. And I mentioned this in my blog when I talked about finding conversation partners. I was talking about Spanish, but of course it also applies to Portuguese. Talking to people who also speak your native language is really not ideal if you want to get practice, because generally they will fall back on English in this case to sort of help you out, to make you feel comfortable. And it's because they're nice people and they're trying to help. And I did appreciate that because I really would have been lost had I not had bilingual friends. But in terms of my Portuguese, it really didn't help me get that conversation practice in. I had to get away from my friends, and that might sound bad, but I had to find some time to go out on my own to just talk to people. And it happened on several occasions. So this is how I got my 10 minutes of my 10-minute conversation with a native speaker. And it's going to sound silly, but it's sort of a little language hack I've used before. But I would say Uber, right? Most of the time, Uber drivers do not speak multiple languages. I'm not to say none of them do, but they generally speak the language of the locale where they're driving. The other thing is that you're in a confined space with someone for however long the ride is to your destination. And they're used to seeing multiple people during the day. So some of them are friendlier than others, but in general, because they're so used to having multiple conversations with so many people, they're usually kind of easy to talk to. And also, chances are I'll never see them again in my life. So the idea of being embarrassed about making mistakes and all of that wasn't really there as much because I knew this was just one ride and I had a chance to have a conversation and I could sound silly and then I get out the car and okay, it's behind me. Now, I did also have other conversations on the street, not solely Uber drivers. I went to see a few samba shows, and because, again, people there thought I was Brazilian, they would just sort of talk to me. So I had to learn pretty quickly about how to talk about samba schools, which I didn't really know too much about before my trip, and all that in Portuguese. So overall, it was a good trip. I would have loved to do better with my Portuguese while I was there. And again, I think I had high expectations being a beginner of what I'd be able to do, but I am happy with what I was able to accomplish. I'm happy that I did step out of my comfort zone a few times and actually have conversations with native speakers while I was there. That's it for my week 7 update. We'll say a little something in Portuguese to end this out. So here goes. Eu fui a Brasil para Carnaval e fui a Sambódromo para assistir às escolas de samba e eu gostei muito. That's it for me for this week. I'll be back next week with another video. Obrigada. Tchau, tchau.